is an honor to be opening this conference. In the days ahead, we will be talking about some of the most vital issues facing Scotland and the world around us. I wish that we could be in one room together and seeing each other face to face. I hope that we are able to do this by the time of the autumn conference. The last year has been difficult for all of us. Many of us have not seen friends or our families. We need to make sure that the Scotland we build from this is a better Scotland for everyone. This election will be crucial to how we rebuild, not just for our communities, but also because of the climate emergency that we are approaching. Today, we will be talking about that crisis and how we address it. We'll be talking about our vision of a fairer, greener, and a more compassionate Scotland. Compassion has to be the key. I have seen the Home Office up close, and it's not compassionate. I have seen the hostile environment and the impact of anti-migrant policies. When I arrived in the UK in 2003, I had no plan to run for Parliament. It could not have been further from my mind. But it is because of the experiences that I have had with the system that I am doing this. It is because I want to make the system more welcoming and accommodating for people who choose to make Scotland their home. I joined this party because I care about human rights and about the voices of marginalized people. I joined because I take climate emergencies seriously. I joined this party because we get things done. We have secure free school meals for children, free bus travel for young people, and a pay rise for doctors, nurses, and teachers who have got us through the last 12 months. And we can thank them enough. We need to make positive choices if we are to build a better and more inclusive future for ourselves and our children. I am standing to be an MSP for Glasgow. I want to help and inspire other people, particularly women, who have wanted to stand for Parliament for so long but have felt the Parliament is not for them. If our Parliament is to represent Scotland, then it needs to look like Scotland. We must vote like Scotland's future depends on it, because it really does. I know that we can build the fairer, greener Scotland that we all want to see. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy Spring Conference.
I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. These are Greta Thunberg's words to Davos in 2019. She opened her speech saying that scientists had given us less than 12 years before we were unable to undo our mistakes, until we are irreversibly committed to a climate catastrophe of our own making. Now we have less than 10 years. And in the intervening 2 years, we've seen the climate bill passed by the Scottish Parliament, which set new targets, and thanks to the Greens, established a citizens' assembly on climate. We've seen Scotland take baby steps. Things like increasing funding for energy efficiency and cycling, walking and wheeling, a new nature recovery fund. The Greens secured all of this. We've seen the Scottish Government congratulate itself for eye-catching targets and then miss those targets. We've seen the Scottish Parliament declare a climate emergency. What we haven't seen is an emergency response, because it's clearer than ever that this is an emergency that demands urgent and bold action. Remember the apocalyptic scenes of forest fires ravaging Australia last year? Now look at the devastating flooding hitting exactly the same place this year. Here in Scotland, our climate is changing rapidly too. 9 of the 10 warmest years on record have been since the year 2000. And extreme weather events are becoming more frequent and intense, causing flash flooding and wildfires. Some species are already being forced into decline. Wildlife organisations are warning of apocalyptic losses. Our climate is breaking down in front of our eyes. As we emerge from the pandemic, this unprecedented challenge must be at the heart of our plans for recovery. COVID has shown the fragile foundations that our society is built on, exposed its inequality. This one virus has ravaged lives, shut down economies, killed 10,000 people in Scotland and millions worldwide, and it is far from over. But it has also shown both the need and the capacity for governments to act with urgency. The most effective countries acted quickly, decisively, and prioritised collective well-being. The climate crisis is, in this sense, no different. If left to unfold by complacent governments like Boris Johnson's Tories, who seek to protect the economic system which has brought us to the point of crisis, then the impact of climate change will quickly overwhelm the pain and suffering we've seen over the last year. This Parliament, the next 5 years, is our chance to act. The choices our governments and governments around the world make over the next 5 years will determine whether we step back from the brink and secure a green recovery from the pandemic, or whether we build back the old broken system that went before. A society eroded by inequality and poverty, hurtling toward climate catastrophe. I think Scotland's Citizens' Assembly on climate has it right when they say, if we fail to act now, we will fail our current and future generations. In Scotland and around the world, politicians must have the courage to act now. Well, the last 5 years has shown that the political movement that does have the courage to stand up to vested interests and act now is the Green movement. As we showed in our end-of-term report card yesterday, just a handful of Green MSPs have delivered so much. Imagine how much we could do with more. Polls have shown that Scottish Green MSPs will be crucial in securing a majority for independence in May, but our vision for independence is bolder than the SNP's. Independence is not our end game. We believe in creating a new, fairer, greener Scotland, and independence is only the first step. A Scotland that rejects the failed economics of the UK, that allows a tiny minority to hoard wealth while millions are plunged into poverty. A Scotland that can play a huge role in efforts for peace and nuclear disarmament by leaving NATO and ridding our country of weapons of mass destruction. A Scotland that leads Europe in renewable energy and tackling the climate emergency. Because we haven't got time to hold back, imagining that we're too small or too poor to make a difference. This is why every single Green MSP elected in May will support an independence referendum being held during the next session and after the pandemic, and will campaign for a Green yes. Conference, we enter this campaign stronger than ever, and polls are suggesting that in May we can return a record number of Scottish Greens. A Green group in Holyrood representing every part of Scotland that will deliver a pro-independence majority and an uncompromising, bold and effective voice for climate action. Turning these poll results into reality will be down to all of you. The incredible work of Scottish Green Party members, supporters and voters across Scotland. The transformational green progress we need will only happen if the people of Scotland vote like their future depends on it, and if you join me and do everything we can to make it happen. Conference, this is our chance. It's time to act like we're in a crisis because we are in a crisis. It's time to act like our house is on fire because it is on fire. Time to vote like our future depends on it because it truly does. Time to vote Green.
In just a few weeks' time, the Scottish Greens will go to the people of Scotland with a bold, practical and comprehensive plan to build a fairer and greener Scotland. It's clear that Scotland urgently needs this ambition. The pandemic has plunged more people into poverty and revealed an economy propped up by insecure work and poor conditions, a social security net full of holes. As Patrick has pointed out, we have less than 10 years to avert climate catastrophe. Conference, we need an economic recovery from the pandemic that creates jobs, tackles the climate emergency, and builds a fairer Scotland. We need a green economic recovery. At the heart of a green economic recovery are our plans to create over 100,000 jobs through investing at least £7.5 billion in green infrastructure. Today, I want to give you an outline of these bold but costed and deliverable plans, and over the coming weeks, we will be sharing more detail. Our job-creating infrastructure plans are centered around 4 priorities. Firstly, public transport. For decades, Scotland has underinvested in public transport, giving us expensive, unreliable, and limited services that force people into their cars and leave out entire communities, particularly in rural Scotland. The result is spiraling greenhouse gas emissions, increased poverty, and an economy crippled by a lack of cheap, reliable, and modern transportation. The Scottish Greens will change this. We will end the prioritisation of investment in new roads and instead turbocharge investment into public transport. This includes the Greens' Rail for All programme, a 20-year, £22 billion programme to upgrade our railways, give us a network and service that befits a modern European nation. This will directly create thousands of jobs. Secondly, homes. We will ramp up efforts to make homes warmer, more efficient, and cheaper to run. Too many people across Scotland live in homes that are costly to heat, and new houses are still being built to low standards with yesterday's fossil fuel heating systems. The Scottish Greens will change this. Investing in energy efficiency is the cheapest and most effective way of creating green jobs and reducing emissions. We will deliver a massive investment programme that creates tens of thousands of jobs and will mean no home is left behind. Everyone will enjoy the health, financial, and well-being benefits of upgraded homes, and we guarantee that those in fuel poverty will benefit from this transition. Thirdly, our natural environment. The pandemic has revealed to so many of us the importance of our parks and countryside, yet they suffer from systemic neglect and underinvestment. Our landscapes are degraded, our wildlife is in decline. The Scottish Greens will change this. We will invest in the restoration of Scotland's parks, green spaces, and natural environment. This will tackle the climate emergency by accelerating reforestation and the restoration of peatland, and it will tackle the nature emergency whilst investing in rural communities, creating vital, long-term, high-quality jobs and economic opportunities across rural Scotland. Finally, renewable energy, the sector I work in. Scotland benefits from an extraordinary wealth in renewable energy resources on land and at sea. Yet the renewable energy sector has been badly let down by Westminster. Onshore wind has largely been abandoned. Tidal power, an industry that we could lead the world in, has been neglected. And the supply chain jobs that we all hoped for have not materialised. The Scottish Greens will change this. Scotland can lead the renewables revolution in Europe with our investment plans, and we can create many thousands of jobs in this sector across the country over the coming years. All parties will talk about a recovery at this election. Even Boris Johnson claims he will build back better, in the same breath that he proposes to cut taxes on internal flights, an unprecedented road building programme, and ever more licenses for oil and gas extraction. Their promises are built on sand. They rely on carbon capture technologies we haven't even got, while ignoring existing technology that works really well. It's dishonest and irresponsible to suggest that we can just carry on pouring carbon into our atmosphere, hoping that new inventions will save us. The urgency of the climate crisis means that we need to do everything all at once right now. We need to drive emissions down to zero as soon as possible and remove significant amounts of carbon that is already in our atmosphere. This is not an either-or scenario. We need the carbon capture of a healthy, rewilded landscape and practical, costed policies for reducing emissions. Investing in and subsidizing fossil fuels now is fundamentally incompatible with the Paris Agreement. Conference, the Scottish Greens are setting our detailed investment plans that will see at least £7.5 billion going to public transport, warm homes, restoring our natural environment and renewable energy, creating over 100,000 jobs in the process. Some, no doubt, will ask where the money will come from. But this is the wrong question. There is a broad consensus that we will need to see an investment-led recovery, that a return to austerity would be even more devastating than the last time around. So the real question is, what will we invest in? The Tories have been clear. They want to spend untold amounts of money on expanding their nuclear arsenal, which we in Scotland are forced to host, while at the same time cutting the budget for most public services next year by 8%, delivering yet more grinding and cruel austerity for ordinary people. The SNP have also failed to break from the status quo, continuing to plough billions into road building and pinning their hopes on fossil fuel hydrogen and the carbon capture and storage. Only the Scottish Greens have the solutions to tackle the climate emergency and ensure a green recovery from the pandemic. We will build a fair and green economy, tackle the climate emergency, rebuild our public services, correct the stark and growing inequalities taking away the life chances of too many, and prevent the collapse in the natural environment upon which we all depend. Conference, this is our chance. We have shown that the Greens can deliver the change we need, and we have the solutions to secure a green recovery for Scotland. In just 6 weeks, the people of Scotland will have a choice. Do you want more of the same, or will you vote like your future depends on it?